This is the TEAC A-6300 reel-to-reel. Today we're going to be repairing the pinch roller lift mechanism. This one has a common problem. That when you press play, this pinch roller should engage with the capstan and pull the tape through from the supply side to the take-up side. But when we press play, nothing really happens. If we lift the pinch roller into position and press play, it begins playing. And this pinch roller should move up and down freely, but the grease that's used on these machines turns sticky over time, and it binds up the pivoting mechanism behind this pinch roller, and that causes it to seize up. Another thing we're going to look at is this guide post that's been installed on this 6300. I've never seen one of these before, but I can imagine someone may have installed it there to improve the tracking on these machines, because sometimes they do veer off track. That's usually caused by bad tension adjustment on these units. Doesn't have the right back tension, and sometimes the tape will slip off the pinch roller, or sometimes the pinch roller can be glazed over and it'll just slip off. There's a number of reasons that could cause that, but we're going to try to get the other camera working on this. We're going to take this thing apart. Here you can see the additional guide post or tape guide that's installed on this unit. It's pretty neat the way they did it, and it looks like it really goes there, so someone put a little thought into that, and it's a pretty neat design that I'm going to pay close attention to and perhaps replicate on some of the other A models from TEAC. But to get started, I'm going to rewind the tape, or take the tape off the machine, and I'm going to disassemble a bit of the front. Just take the pinch roller off. Okay, I'm just taking a look at this addition that they added to the machine. Looks like it's glued to the frame, but they've made a cutout around the capstan so it fits in there perfectly. So it's a pretty neat addition. Okay, so from here we're going to flip the unit over, remove the back cover, and then we'll start working on removing the capstan, and then removing this remove this capstan, and removing the pivoting mechanism that moves this arm up and down. Okay, so now we're at the rear of the machine. We've removed the back cover, and found that the easiest way to start out with this process is to remove. Let's see if I can get a better picture. Yes, to remove this bracket that holds the capstan in, and to do that, remove these two screws on this end. 3 screws actually on this end. 1, 2, 3, and then disconnect this plug. Go back and disconnect this plug, and if I recall, you have to remove this plug also. Go ahead and do that. And another thing you want to do, make sure you have the power off, but just run your screwdriver across this board, because there are a couple of capacitors there that can give you a little zap. Might get a little fireworks going here. Okay. And again, we're going to move these 3 screws and 2 screws on this end. Okay, and this bracket comes all the way out. Belt on this one seems like it's in good shape still. We'll just get him out of the way. Next we'll pull the capstan out. Okay, next inside the unit, we'll see a brace. Let's get something to go with. This brace right here, we need to remove these 2 screws. These 2 screws, and it'll come off. And then we'll also, I don't think we need to take that last one off. We'll remove these 2 screws, and that'll remove the brace. Okay, next up we need to move this magnet out of the way a little bit so you can get out of the way of this shaft. And to do that, we'll remove 2 screws and loosen 1. So the 3 screws are located right here. It's the first one. The second one is located here. It's kind of behind those wires. And the third one is located right here. And before we do that, looks like someone's putting a little beefier spring that's normally installed on there. We're going to take that spring off also, just disconnect it. Okay, we'll just let it hang right there. And then we'll loosen 2 of these screws take out 2 of these screws and then loosen 1 of them. Okay, next we'll just rotate the magnet out of the way. And we'll just tilt it back a little bit to give us some clearance. If you can see where this fork is, this plunger slips down over this fork, and as the magnet energizes, it pulls this lever towards it, and that's how the pinch roller moves up and down. But we have to give us some clearance so we can slide this assembly off and clean out this shaft so it travels more freely. Right now it seems like it's moving okay, but I think it's because that post is rotating as well, and it should remain stable, and this lever should just pivot on that post. But it looks like the entire post is moving. Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is pull this shaft off of the post, and it's usually hard to get off. So what I do is I'll add a little heat to it with a heat gun, and that loosens up that grease inside and allows this lever to come off. But I'm going to try to pry it off with some pliers first. Yeah, it's seasoned on there pretty well, so we're just going to use a heat gun and loosen up the grease, and it should slide right off. We'll give that a try. And makes it a lot easier for this thing to come off. You just want to take your time with it. You can see the mechanism and the post that it rides on. Both of these guys are really hot right now, so you want to be careful with that. Let it cool down for a minute before you start doing anything with it. Okay, so after the lever has cooled down enough, you just want to clean this cylinder out with, I use some liquid wrench with this one has white lithium grease, and just spray a little in there and use a Q-tip or something similar to clean all the old grease out. And you can use alcohol or whatever, because we want to put a little more grease or lubrication inside this cylinder before we slip it back over the post. I'm going to clean the post off also. Okay, it should be all right now. And we're going to do the same thing to the post. I'm just using the same lubrication to clear off the post. Okay, and next we're going to put a little bit of lube inside the inside that cylinder. I'm not going to put any on the post. The lube that we put inside the cylinder will be enough to keep this lever lubricated. I just put a little grease on a Q-tip and insert it inside the cylinder and wipe off the excess. Okay. And then we're going to slip it back on to the shaft. Okay, next we'll start the reassembly. We'll just put the plunger back between the fork. We'll reattach our spring. And I'm using hemostats. You can use tweezers or locking tweezers, or if you have a spring pull, one of those old school tools we used to use back in the day. Those would work great in this instance. Just want to hook them over this bracket and make sure it's in the hole. Next we'll reinsert those 2 screws on the magnet. Next we'll install the capstan. I'm going to clean out that the shaft for the capstan. Maybe put a little lube on the capstan itself. I almost forgot the bracket. Gotta get that guy on first. Okay, next we'll put on the capstan. And again, this belt is in good shape, so we're going to keep them on there. Make sure that it spins freely. And next we're going to reattach the brace for the capstan. There are 2 pulleys side by side on the business end of the motor. The first one closest to the front plate is for 50 hertz. So you want to make sure, if you're in the US, you want to make sure that this belt is on the most rear pulley, because that's set up for 60 hertz. Or you'll be able to tell right away if you're playing your machine and it's playing too slow or too fast. The belt is most likely in the wrong position, so you just need to swap that out. Okay, so we're going to finish up on the 6300. We're putting that little grommet or bushing back over the shaft and just press it on to the down over the shaft. Use our hemostats to push it back a little bit. And get it into place. And we'll screw on our cover. We'll put our pinch roller back on. Okay, and then we'll give it a little power. And okay, so now when we hit play, we should see the pinch roller engage. Pretty simple fix on these 6300s. Basically the same principle applies for the 2300, 3300, 4300, and this series of TX also. If you have any questions, just hit me up, and I'll be glad to go over any steps that you have questions about with.